Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, and welcome to the program. It is our true honor and pleasure to have representatives from Bangladesh, from Cambodia, from Lao PDR, from the Kyrgyz Republic, and from Vietnam participating in this program. We have representatives who are teacher trainers, who are education policymakers, who are policymakers in other fields, and school leaders. And we hope that by bringing these three groups of people together, we'd be able to understand, to dissect, and to unpack the challenges that we face in education today. And by the end of the program, we hope that the countries participating would be able to work together to chart a way forward, to envision a future in their education system that is brighter than what it is today. I do hope that during the ice-breaking session, which just ended, everyone got to know their fellow countrymen and women who are participating in this program. We hope that through the relationships that you build, not just with people from your own country, but also from your colleagues from the other participating countries, from the organizers, and with the experts who will be delivering the training over the week, you'll be able to find and nurture relationships that help you in your personal position and also your country overcome educational challenges. 2020 has been a trying year for everybody. It started not particularly auspiciously, and we had COVID-19. COVID-19 has not only changed the face of education, but it has certainly changed the way we do work, we play, we interact with each other, and most importantly, how we educate tomorrow's leaders. Many countries, and every country that's participating in this program, has faced a version or other of movement restrictions and of lockdowns due to COVID-19. This has had a significant impact on the educational trajectory of students in these countries. Being unable to go to school could lead to significant learning losses. And the challenges that come about from these learning losses could very likely be compounded and affect these students for years to come, their future employment prospects, and in their contribution to society. So during this program, one of the things we would like to think about and try to unpack is how we can minimize some of these learning losses. For health reasons, and rightly so, many governments chose to prioritize the health and safety of its population and lock down schools, limit movement. But now we are slowly, in some countries, beginning to open up. In other countries, we have moved towards online learning. We have encouraged schools to conduct classes through online means, and other systems are challenged with reduced infrastructure in their ways of trying to move learning to a different space. So what will education look like in 20 years, in 30 years? Is learning from home going to be part of the education system that we're used to? Does teacher development have to change as we give more emphasis to online learning? And for policymakers, what does this mean? Do investments in infrastructure have to change significantly? Should priority be given to infrastructure development over the development of physical school buildings? These are issues that we'd like to think more deeply about during this program. So ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure and my privilege to introduce my co-organizer and the Chief of the Education Sector Group at the Asian Development Bank, Dr. Brajesh Pant, to make his opening remarks. Brajesh, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vignesh, for that kind introduction. So good morning and good afternoon, dear colleagues, participants, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to reinforce what Vignesh has already mentioned. Today is a special day, World Teachers' Day. I'm glad that we are starting this program on a special day. Let me take this opportunity to thank all the teachers for their fantastic contributions to this at this difficult time to continue education and support the learning of particularly those that need support the most. This professional development program is the fourth one in ADB's partnership with the HEAD Foundation. We're really glad that this has been possible and we'll be able to share challenges and opportunities for the new normal. I would like to highlight three interrelated areas. Why this workshop? Turning the crisis into an opportunity is always what we like to do. From every crisis, we learn quite a lot and become more resilient and strong. This is why everyone is talking about building back better. Second, reimagining education from pre-COVID-19 to new normal. Building back better requires stepping up more to particularly improve learning for all by drawing on new possibilities from the lessons we are learning and building on emerging good practices. And all the countries are doing that. Country priorities and emerging good practices are to drive policy reform. We can already see how countries are reprioritizing to ensure that no one is left behind. However, there is still a risk that the competing priorities will squeeze resources to education. This may affect the hard-earned gains made in the past decade. In the interest of time, I don't want to elaborate this slide because Vignesh has already highlighted the main objectives of this workshop. But these objectives underscore the need to increase the pace of reform, particularly student learning, which requires taking innovative approaches, improving coordination among key stakeholders, and forging partnerships to mobilize expertise and resources. The basic question is, why reimagine education? The story is simple, but the response is much more complex. There has been remarkable improvement in access over the past 3-4 decades. However, the painful reality is that schooling does not guarantee learning. The pace of improvement in learning has been very slow. All of us know that COVID-19 has exacerbated learning crisis and inequities. And education being the biggest enabler, we cannot allow that. But COVID-19 has also highlighted opportunities to reimagine reforms. So this is why we are having this workshop and exchanging new thinking and ideas. There were already several challenges before COVID-19 struck. With COVID-19, we're seeing unprecedented disruptions in education that are exacerbating the learning crisis that many developing countries were facing, and inequities have risen because many countries have had to close their schools, thereby disproportionately affecting those that were already lagging behind. So the urgency to address the current crisis is extremely high and needs a combination of short-term, immediate response, medium-term recovery during the transition, and long-term approach, rejuvenation to reimagine the new normal. For example, for the immediate response, it is important to think about how to prepare to open schools safely, how to support teachers to manage remote learning using multi-channels of EdTech depending on no-tech, low-tech, mid-tech, and high-tech areas, which will be elaborated during the workshop. How to support students with social, emotional, and mental well-being. This is now becoming very important, as we have all seen. For the new normal and reform, there are opportunities to look into how to improve collaboration between principals, teachers, and administrators, how to prepare teachers to support personalized learning of students, how to support students' learning in and outside of school. Now, the shift has also happened to school, from school to homes, So how do we support parents, students, how to improve and sustain investments in blended learning, which partly was elaborated by Vignesh, and how to develop partnership to improve learning and equity. For instance, how can universities, faculty of education, partner with national and international organizations to support MOE and its related organizations? Let me now reflect on some of the key challenges and opportunities. There is growing consensus around the key outcome of education to develop self-directed lifelong learners with 21st century skills. There are several interrelated elements that contribute to this, as this slide shows. As McKinsey noted several years ago in their report on how the world's best school system come out on the top, the quality of education system cannot exceed the quality of its teachers. If you look at Finland, South Korea, and Singapore, and more recently Estonia, they have been able to attract and retain top graduates into teaching and develop them into high quality instructors. There is hardly any shortcut to this. There may be some options on this, like the one offered by Teach for All, which recruits fresh graduates to teach for 2 years because they are motivated and they can infuse new thinking in the system. The point is, good graduates from bachelor's programs bring the enthusiasm and current content knowledge to excite young learners. Blended learning is proving to be quite effective in preparing teachers at scale without diluting the quality of training that we have noticed in cascade mode of training. Next is the curriculum and assessment. We talk a lot about 21st century skills, which go beyond foundational literacy and numeracy and what we call reading, writing, and arithmetic. The opportunity we have is the development of such materials in many countries, and there are some great open source materials. Interested countries can draw on these rich materials to align with their national curriculum. What is also important is to develop real-time continuous formative assessment tools that help inform teachers, principals, policymakers, and parents about the progress of the students and galvanize resources to support personalized learning. EdTech solution could now do that. Another critical component is school leadership. Successful school systems prepare their school leaders quite well, since they are key to providing leadership in high quality teaching and learning, resource mobilization, and networking with key stakeholders. All these elements point to the need for strengthening institutions and education workforce and upgrade them continuously to align with new developments. Based on the analysis of 2018 PISA results, Andreas Leiser, Director of Education, in his recent blog has tried to debunk some popular myths, which I think are very relevant to our discussion in this workshop, to show how successful education systems are providing high quality education. The one myth is the poor will always do badly in school. And he says that's not true, because the 10% most disadvantaged kids in Shanghai do better in maths than the 10% most advantaged students in large American cities. Second, immigrants will lower the performance of a country on international comparisons. Again, that's not true, because there is no relationship between the share of immigrant students and the quality of an education system. And the school system in which immigrant students settle matter a lot more than the country where they come from. Migration happens all the time from rural areas to urban areas in developing countries, and where there are good school systems, these migrant children are absorbed quite well and learn very well. Smaller classes mean better results. Again, that's not true. He says, whenever high-performing education systems have to make a choice between a smaller class and a better teacher, they go for the latter. And I have personally seen that all the time, particularly in urban areas where there are some good schools, and teachers tend to stay in urban centers and they manage large classrooms relatively quite well. There is increasing emphasis on using inquiry-based project-based pedagogy to enhance higher order skills of students. This is how the concept of flipped classroom was introduced to take advantage of blended learning. Here, what the graph shows is Bloom's taxonomy in a flipped classroom and compares with traditional model on the left side and the flipped model on the right side. The key message is the idea is to infuse higher order skills among learners from early on. And the way that is done is to use online learning, that is before classes, to provide basic understanding and then build on that concept to encourage discussions in the classroom to solve and apply, based on the concepts learned. Now let's look at another promising development, EdTech for personalized learning at all levels. So the school systems we know as today are meant to provide similar instructions to all at the same time, which is really difficult because we all know that students are diverse and their individualized needs are very different. Some are fast learners, some are slow learners, some require special incentives and excitement. So the whole idea is to see how what we call adaptive learning can help with this. The big advantage of this is it generates big data about learners, about teachers, to show how systems are improving, and then the system people involved can look at it and provide necessary support, reduce workload of teachers, while at the same time relying on online formative continuous assessment to keep on improving teaching and learning. The current crisis has also galvanized global partners to look at how to support address the current crisis and support governments to improve the current situation. What we have seen is in the initial rounds of support in most countries, obviously health becomes very important, social protection because many people have lost jobs, they need continuity for their well-being, and then also economic recovery because governments are losing revenues while their costs are rising. So against this backdrop, there is a campaign called Save Our Future, comprising multilateral banks like World Bank, ADB, and UN agencies, UNICEF, UNESCO, and others, and also civil society organizations that are together to support governments. And there are 5 areas that come out very important, very distinctly. One is reopening schools safely, because in some cases, students have already lost 6 months of schooling. And as Vignesh pointed out, this has dire implications for future earnings and continuity. Ensure inclusivity. Again, as I mentioned earlier, very important to ensure everyone is learning, strengthening education workforce so that teachers are able to learn from this, the system is able to learn from this to cope with different challenges. And then use evidence-based EdTech. We are not saying that EdTech is to replace teachers or face-to-face learning. That will never work, but to generate evidence and complement teaching and learning experience. That is the key. And finally, protect, mobilize, and utilize resources at this critical time so that we don't have another looming crisis in the education sector. So I would like to conclude this presentation with 3 questions for you to discuss during this workshop. First, how can we increase the pace of learning so that everyone is able to learn? I think this is the focus of SDG 4 for quality education, and very important for us all to work together. Second, how can we improve learning levels of bottom 50% of learners? Because if we can reduce those gaps, then the systems will begin to improve significantly or more significantly. And this is what we are seeing in our member countries. And finally, what reforms need most resources and how to mobilize more resources. So it's not only more resources, but spending also is key to this. So with this, I'd like to wish you a very successful workshop. So thank you very much and all the best from my side.